don't panic. This is it looks typical on its face. It's not a financial disclosure. They didn't issue the stock in exchange for $40 billion in cash, which would go into a Form 10Q or a 10K, which they have to file because they have more than 500 shareholders. That's why they had to file the S1 to begin with. So, and they're not a public company. They're just publicly reporting. They're not publicly trading. That stock is sitting in AST. I don't know how many shares are actually issued in Exbridge Hydrocarbons because I've never spoken with McCabe. I've never taken a deep look at the report, so I really just don't know. But at this point, don't panic. Those are not issued shares. That's just basically treasury stock that's reserved for future issuances. So
Well,
if they want to give you guys a dividend going forward, maybe three more NextBridge hydrocarbon shares for every MMTLP shares. If they want to issue it, they have enough shares to do that with now. But we don't know why they did that. We don't know what McCabe's plan is going forward, and we you may not know too much about it other than the quarterly reports, the financial reports that they have to file. So I kind of hope that kind of clears it up because I don't want anybody, leaving this phone call tonight thinking that, oh God, it was a short position that's covered 500 billion shares. That's not it at all.
Well, and we weren't saying that. We were saying they were just authorized. It was just the number of being in the billions was concerning because if they did start authorizing shares for, like you said, capitalization, acquiring other companies, things like this, that could still affect us financially. And having that large of a number, we thought was just very concerning. Without having any kind of real clarification. That's why three of us made phone calls
Yeah,
and
yeah,
recorded.
yeah. So Alan, so regarding that, you can look at it one of two ways, right? The first way is what you're looking at, which I don't think is off the mark. It's not out of the realm of possibility. It's concerning because eventually the company over time can dilute you down to whatever your actual share value actually is per share in Xbridge hydrocarbons. A lot of companies have very high authorized shares. The other is that maybe there's a plan in place. Maybe they authorize this many shares because they have a very big expansion plan, very big asset acquisition plan. And those kind of plans could add accretive value to your shares instead of taking it away from a dilution standpoint. So I know that when they feel they have good assets, they'll have a high authorized share amount because what happens is in this case, if they only had 100 million shares, right? And they want to acquire more assets in the Permian Basin, and they don't have cash, they can use stock. But say the other company wants 200 million shares in order to purchase the acquisition of these oil fields or mineral rights or whatever in this other area of the Permian Basin. NextBridge Hydrocarbons couldn't do that. They now have to go back and do a shareholder vote. They have to get board approval under Nevada state corporate law, and they have to increase their authorized shares. Not that it's impossible, but that's what happens. Especially, I see this all the time with dilution funding and all your other companies. The companies run out of stock. They have to do a 14C. They have to do a proxy. They have to do a vote. They have to increase their authorized shares so they can keep feeding the market with shares because the lenders and the funders keep taking the stock out of the market from you guys. So Alan, so you can look at it both ways, right?
Well, I'm looking at it from a little different angle. Maybe I wasn't clear enough. Let me just, I guess, restate what I was initially thinking was, could this possibly be a forward stock split, which would cause the short positions to have to basically if they were forced to cover, they would have to cover whatever the forward split was. So if you say they did a 1 to 100, if you had one share, then now you have 100, those short positions would have to follow that. Is that not correct?
Well, I think you're mixing apples and oranges, because the short positions are done after the 165.4 million shares are issued. Done. There's no way to cover a short in a private company. I don't give a crap what that
Okay.
asshole from the OTC market says. You can't cover a short position in a private company. You
Okay.
can't you can't do that because there's no public market to create the short position. That short position technically gets extinguished by operation of law once there's a share exchange with the holders of record. Now, if there's more shares in there, then there's a naked short problem, and that's a whole different problem,
No,
right?
and I understand that. I did notice something when I called, and I didn't play this part of the video because I had to put in my social security number. But when you first call AST, it asks you to put in your social security number. It identifies your stock. It tells you
Mm-hmm.
how many you have, what your account is, and that type of information. One of the things that has not been in there that is now back in the queue of list of things you can do is you can now order again a account transfer of ownership form, which they did take away for a while, and
Mm-hmm.
apparently that is back.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they're allowing for account transfers, but if they were, technically you could broker your own sale and then fill out that change of ownership form, if I'm understanding this correctly, and submit that with the new owner's information. Is that not how that works on the transfer of ownership forms at AST?
Um, I'm not sure how AST does it. I'm sure that there's a regulatory framework that all transfer agents have to follow. They may use different forms to do that, but you know, uh, quite frankly, I think that there's there's probably a large share imbalance, but what is being dissected, I don't think has anything to do with it. I don't think the way AST processes this, whether there's 500 million or 500 billion shares issued and outstanding, I don't think it's designed for any sort of forward stock split to catch anybody to any, that there's no clever way around hiding a short position other than just not disclosing it. And that's exactly what you're seeing in all the court cases, including your court case. Nobody wants to disclose anything. But you know what? You know, Wes hasn't started his lawsuits yet for naked shorting, like the SEC just did against Sabby. So we don't know. But you know, I don't want to get pulled into the exercise of what anybody thinks AST is doing behind the scenes in order to try to balance the shares, or you can't take a short position in a private company. The public market short position doesn't go into a private company. There's no mechanism for that. There's no operative legal way to do that. If they're short in the market, that means they've oversold, right? They were supposed to only sell shares that they can borrow. So they had to identify the borrowed shares. And if they have to close their position, they have to buy those borrowed shares and then close their position. If they don't close their position and they haven't found the borrowed shares, they're stuck. There's no shares that will trail over the next bridge hydrocarbons. It just won't happen. There's no legal mechanism to do that. It's math,
No, no, I
right? So
understand.
Mark,
Mark, we've had a bunch of hands. I need to have go, so everybody's been sitting here waiting. You're
wait,
very correct, and that's why I posted the video, just so everybody's aware, so they don't take something that was said out of context. They can
right,
hear it for themselves.
right, exactly.
And authorized is very key on that word. But I guess whoever was next, I think it was Status, and then Smokey.
just,
Just
I think 100 wanted to chime in. Let's give 100 a chance to chime in, and then we'll go to hands. Thank you for patiently waiting, guys. Whoever has their hands up.
Just real quick, the comment about administratively changing the state of incorporation of the share structure doesn't necessarily need to be revealed. Is that accurate down the road because they are publicly reporting?
Well, I don't. So 100. It's not that they don't have to be revealed. They probably file. Yeah. I mean, look, these guys aren't fooling around. McCabe's not fooling around. He's not going to do anything nefarious. If AST has 500 billion shares, that's because the company authorized it, which means that there was a filing with the Secretary of State of the state of their incorporation, whether it's Nevada, Texas, or whatever.
Okay,
Sometimes that paperwork won't show up for a week or two till they log it in, but it doesn't mean it's not effective.
that's fine. I wanted to raise the question because it's obvious, anybody who has a financial understanding of the markets knows that share structure is very important for a company's survival and how it's managed. But
Absolutely, 100%.
So I just wanted to ask because to me, this isn't the first time I've seen this maneuver, and it raised questions before, and I just didn't have clarity on it. And I think there is another angle to this in regards to raising the authorized, not just for the allowance of having it used for future financing, but also for controlling interest to protect controlling interest as well.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
100% correct.
Okay, so that makes sense. Okay.
And why do you think that there's been recent issuances? I'm just speculating too with you guys. Why do you think there are recent issuances to the board members to keep voting control among the board? I mean, that's necessary in the operations of a company, especially a publicly financially reported company that's a private company that has, if it has all these assets, the world's their oyster at this point. They can pick and choose which way to go. And these are smart guys. These aren't stupid guys. And I'm not saying I know what they're doing because I have no clue what they're doing. I could just pick up on signals like you guys. But 100, if you even feel that you're struggling a little bit to understand this, well, you're way ahead of me, and that doesn't bode well for the community because the community still needs a lot of freaking answers here. So and that's why you guys have so many questions. It's just there's not enough answers for the questions just yet. But I think over time, I think over the next couple of weeks, you'll see that amended articles of incorporation or the amended certificate of incorporation, maybe some amended bylaws. And it does make sense because the issuances to the board of directors would help them keep control, at least voting control over the direction of the company in the interim.
Hey, Mark, I have a question for you, Mark. So we're talking about authorized, but let's talk about outstanding. Now, a rep told Status Play that they're over 300 million already sent to AST. How can that be? I mean, why are those shares, if we're supposed to be at a 165 million, why are they not being rejected?
Uh, Say that again because I think again it's an apples and oranges thing. But say it again.
But let me clarify, Busy, because the
Thanks.
rep never told me 330. I asked 330, but the rep originally, I asked what's going to happen when we hit the 165 million, and rep chuckled and he said, "We're way past that number. We've been past it for a long time."
Okay, all right. Let me just chime in on that for a second. Status. Um, that doesn't mean that the MMTLP NextBridge hydrocarbon shares weren't 1-for-1 for 165.4, right? That can mean that there are other issuances for other purposes to the board, to other funding, to asset acquisitions. There could also be warrants. You have to include the warrant shares because the warrants convert into common stock. So you need enough authorized shares to cover warrants also. So I don't know for a fact what it is because I haven't looked at their financials. But I'm telling you, I've been the CEO of two public companies. I represent 40 or 50 public companies. I understand how the capitalization works and why certain things happen. But when you do this, you have to take into account everything that's issued, including warrants. So if there's stock issuances that have a unit warrant attached to it, well, whatever that warrant converts into shares, those shares also you have to also have enough authorized shares to do that as well, or you're going to amend your articles again at some future time. So you're right to look at that status, but it's I don't think you can just say, oh, we're way beyond. If the AST says we're way beyond that, remember you're talking to customer service people who just are talking in generalizations what they see. They probably see 320 million shares issued and authorized. I mean, issued, right? But they're not listening to your question because your question really is if you're only limited to 165.4 on the 1-for-1 exchange, go look at the 1-for-1 exchange. Are there any other shares that have been issued aside 165.4 on the 1-on-1 exchange? That's the question you have to ask them. If they
Well, we
just
know
say,
that number though, Mark, because we've seen that they issued McCabe his.
right,
But outside of that, the warrants were included in the 165.4. And then they added McCabe's, and that was what, 50 million. And so that if they're over 300 million or, somewhere above that number, then they're in the territory of being way oversold, which we
Well,
already have
no, it's not.
a really good
No,
idea on.
no, it's not, Alan. It's not oversold. Not based on that figure. It's not oversold. What you don't know is what the other issuances are with the company, and sometimes that alone is not reflected in the company financials. You don't
Alan,
know. You don't. Yeah.
don't forget they also issued several, I can't remember the exact number, but several million more shares to complete acquiring 100% working interest, not just
Right.
McCabe's initial
And
S1.
I was just going to bring that up too, because that was something I left out. They did, but we have an accounting of how many they've issued up to this point. We know what that number actually is.
Yeah, but we don't know. But you don't know what any contingent issuances there are. Again, this is a private company. It doesn't have to disclose all of that information at this point. But
Okay.
but again, over 2 weeks, you may see that they acquired a working interest for 50 million shares, or they acquired something else. I'm just saying we don't know. But if AST says there's over 300 million shares issued, and there's 500 million shares authorized, and 165.4 out of those 500 million shares are reserved for the one-for-one exchange, then you could assume that anything over the 165.4 is for other stuff. I don't think you could assume that anything over the 165.4 is to cover shorts. I don't think that's not how it really works. So I'm trying to give you guys some peace of mind based upon all the stuff that I've done over 30 years, that I don't think you can just look at the authorized shares and then piecemeal together. But because a lot of retail traders do that with other companies, especially the OTC companies, because then they'll start attacking the CEOs and the management team. You're hiding shares. You're doing this. You're doing that. I don't think you have that problem with McCabe and NextBridge Hydrocarbons, even though they're not on any exchanges or anything. I think
I don't either, Mark, but I
yeah.
don't think that those were to cover shorts. I believe that those are people that have already gone to AST. But we do need to go to Smokey because this is just going in circles, and I know people have had their hands up, and I've got limited time, and I know other people do too. So, Smokey, go for it, man.
Hey, thank you. First off, Mark, you didn't just hit the nail on the head with the hammer. You built the whole house around it. You like said everything that I was wanting to say, but didn't know how to say it because, well, I don't know how to talk about it like you do. But I do want to ask you a question before I say the other thing I want to say. First, are you aware that NextBridge Hydrocarbons just released a subscription rights offering S1?
No,
That would explain a
I didn't know
huge
that.
increase in shares, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, because you have to reserve those shares that you're going to intend to issue in that S1.
There's
Absolutely.
your answer, everybody. Secondly, did anybody ask how many commas they're looking at? Because sometimes they just miscount commas.
Yeah, I doubt strongly it's 500
Yeah,
million. I think I've heard from somebody who was on the phone, it was confirmed that it was 500 million. But you know what?
it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it
Yeah,
is. As long as they're all not issued, you're
yeah,
okay, right?
because
Status did ask, did you say be with a boy? And they said
yeah,
yes.
yeah, but that's not
And I
counting
also,
commas.
but I also asked a different person repeatedly, and they said the same thing repeatedly.
I know, I know, and I'm still relying on the faith of a customer service agent. Um, if anybody wants to, I wish I could have done it before I got up here, but I'm on my phone. I can't call them. Asking, call them back. Say, hey, can you count those commas for me? Because there's a big difference between 3 and 4.
Well, sure. But if you read the S1 that they put
Yeah,
out, it does not go anywhere near, like it doesn't discuss how, like what the offering would be.
not yet.
I mean, it doesn't give a specific number, but until we hear from NextBridge, everybody's basically just guessing, and that can be really dangerous.
Yes,
Yep,
And so I just
yep.
want to caution everybody to look at the actual information we have. And like Smokey said, when you're talking to a customer service rep, you're talking to a person that is looking at a computer screen that is telling you something. So can we make mistakes? Sure.
And,
We saw how many mistakes were made
and,
in the early recording from everybody recording everybody. And
and
so,
Alan,
yes, there could be mistakes made, but we need to just keep our eyes open and really pay attention to the factual information and then move forward with what does this mean.
and
Go ahead,
Alan,
Mark.
and listen, Alan. I think that was a very good warning because you don't even know the agent you're talking to at AST if they can even know how to balance their own checkbook. So I would go more with court file documents or documents filed with the Secretary of State in order to get your numbers. I wouldn't rely on a clerk. But I did hear somebody say 5 billion once, and the person at AST corrected them, say no, it's 500 million. 500 billion would be like a really unusual number, even for a private company. I mean, I've seen a trillion, but that's for companies that are trading at 0.0004 and have tens of millions of dollars of convertible debt still on their books and they need more stock. So
Well,
that's just a weird number.
well, sure, but I asked them over and over. I asked her, I think, 3 different times, and she said the billion number 3 different times. And like I said, I think we need to wait for this press release. Worst case scenario, it's in another hour from now.
Okay.
Best case scenario, it comes out in 2
I'm
minutes.
pretty sure that that happens all Eastern Standard Time, doesn't that, Mark?
Yeah, it's usually locked into Eastern Standard Time, correct?
Because they usually go off of the market time. However, they could go off of their Nevada corporation time, which would be in 2 minutes if they did that.
I'm watching it very closely, by the way.
Let's go to Jonna. Jonna, you have the mic.
Um, obviously, I said this a couple months ago, and I have been of the belief that there has been some level of an accounting going on behind the scenes. This has been part of an investigation, and I know nobody wants to believe that they're accepting more than the 165.5 million, but I think I had the same conversation with a manager at AST, and it was recorded and sent to Nextbridge a month and a half ago. And I think we need to all sit back and wait. But I also think we also need to realize that this may be part of a bigger investigation behind the scenes where the company is having them collect all of the shares. And my shares are still separated, my original shares versus my purchase shares in 2 different accounts at AST for months now. So I think everybody needs to sit back and kind of wait and see what's happening and not freak out, but also realize that this is something that's been said for months.
So Jonna, that's really good. But I want to remind everybody of something. Now that they're a fully financial reporting company, they have an audit firm, and the audit firm is going to look at their next Q and verify the numbers for the next Q. So to me, the big release sitting on the edge of my chair is the next Q that they're going to release because that's going to have a lot of the information that happened over the last 3 months. And that's a lot of information that we don't have, or your community doesn't have, that you really need. So, I think that heed the warning, be careful, don't jump to conclusions. See what the press release says today. If it lines up with the authorized shares, blah, 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 then that's what's going on. With regard to the share count at AST, you're gonna have to rely on the audit firm that's gonna be doing the review, not necessarily an audit, but a review of the upcoming Q, which they have to file now because they're a publicly reporting company. So, I think that's gonna give you a lot of answers. That may also have a reconciliation of shares. It may very
Well,
well may very well be.
and also the FOIAs that I put out were to the directives that were given to AST, and they were denied because of an investigation.
Right. Yeah. So I mean that's typical. That's just typical.
Go ahead, Savvy.
Well, Jonna kind of covered it, but because the burning question mark really is, especially in light of the S1 prospectus, which of course is not effective, and that's for the subscription rights to a NewCo company, not Nextbridge, actually. So, but Mark, I sent you a text message. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. This is a contract with AST and another company. Item number 10, if you can look at your text with me, item number 10 indicates that AST is basically not the gatekeeper. That even if we are in an oversold situation, they're just going to keep taking shares. But you and I had a conversation where you said that they basically can't take more than the issued, i.e., the 165.5 million from brokers, because that would be fraud. But those two statements seem to be in conflict and creating confusion. Jonna kind of hinted at that. Jonna and I have talked about that. So can you offer any sort of clarity on that? Because the real burning question is whatever they do with all these other shares, it's our goal is to get a share count. At this point, is your understanding based on that contract, which people have looked up other contracts, it's in every contract so far with AST. Is AST going to be taking more than 165.5 if the brokers try to transfer them? Are you able to answer that?
I could only answer that they shouldn't, because that's not what they're authorized to do. Whether the contract says it or not, there's a certain share count. There's 165.4 million shares of MMTLP that were assigned a ticker and a CUSIP, and we're trading. Forget about multiple CUSIPs. Forget about interbroker relationships and dealerships and all that crap. It's you can't. The transfer agent by law, they would fall out of compliance if they issued more than 165.4 million shares. They're not going to jeopardize it. AST is a huge transfer agency for hundreds of public companies. They're not going to jeopardize their standing. So even if the contract says it, which may be some boilerplate language, since it's in almost all of their contracts, I'm sure, it kind of gives them some wiggle room that if something is oversold, allows a negotiation between the issuer and the broker, and maybe they can pull out from some allocation or something. But you have to remember, NextBridge Hydrocarbons is the issuer, and it's the issuer that this is based upon an S1 that was approved, reviewed and effectively approved by the SEC on the 165.4 million shares. So again, once you have a confirmation that there's an actual share imbalance, like real evidence, instead of the speculation, there's technically no problem yet, but I think there's a big problem, personally.
Hey, Savvy, let me go to Ruggaroo real quick because he's waving his hand. Go ahead, Ruggaroo.
So can I chime in for just a second?
Hold on, Alec, because Ruggaroo keeps on
Hey,
waving.
so those contracts are for companies that are not publicly traded. They are the only people in those contracts that are issuing shares are officers of the company. It's non-trading companies. So if there was a share imbalance, it would be because Jana, as the CFO or an issuing officer of the company, issued too many shares to someone. And that's why it would be up to the company to correct that imbalance. It is not a situation similar to ours, where it is a publicly traded company where a share imbalance is not on officers of the company. If you read through that, it also has a section that talks about every official that is authorized to legally issue shares is required to log their stamp and their signature with AST, so that part of their investigation is they figure out, like, okay, Huck is the bad guy. He issued 1 million shares to his buddy. That's
right.
So it's a very different situation. And I read through those contracts, but I understand the fear everyone has, but it's very different from our situation, is what I wanted to say.
Right.
Thank you,
Well,
Ruggaroo.
and honestly, it wasn't fear. It was just getting some clarity because we were getting, mixed messages, mixed interpretations. And so while we had Mark here, Mark, I appreciate it. I know you're incredibly busy right now. So I just wanted to get your clarity on that. And I
Yeah,
agree. I'm every 3 seconds I'm clicking the page. So I think that hopefully we'll get that press release soon, and that'll give some clarity, and we can get off this roller coaster. So.
All right. So status play. Were you done when I jumped in before you, or did you want to go ahead and ask Mark a question?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify that my original call, just for the timeline, was last week when they said 500 billion authorized shares. And because I know Huck called and they said they'd put out a press release today. So I think that was part of the concern, because the last authorized share count that we had seen was 500 million, with no change from that. So that was part of the concern, just to clarify. The other thing I was going to say is, when we saw this and we started talking about it before this space, nobody thought that 500 billion authorized shares meant issued shares. That was not part of the concern. The concern is, for me, I saw, AST telling me to send my shares in. We all believe that it is more than 165.4 million shares. When I see a number like 500 billion, I just think it's more of a bank, that they have a bank of shares that they can go into. It's such an absurd number that we would never hit it. And to me, it just blows the narrative out of the water that they're not going to accept any shares past 165.4 million, that they're going to somehow fill up. I just don't think it's going to happen. From the multiple discussions that I've had with customer service reps, with managers, everyone at AST is telling me, no matter what, they will accept my shares.
Well, that creates a problem, because every transfer agent has a compliance division. And the compliance division, before they accept any shares or transfer any shares, have to go through the entire history and legacy of those shares. And if they already have issued 165.4 million shares already, and they issue one more share, they're out of compliance. And then there's severe fines with the DTC and other agencies to do that. So, could they issue more? Yeah. Are you talking to a manager? I rather talk to one of the executive people over at AST to just understand what their policy is on that, whether they've done it before, under what circumstances they've done it before, and whether they know they've done it in this circumstance. I mean, these are questions I would ask. I would ask them in a deposition, right? So, but I do understand the concern. I mean, I have
So,
concerns too. I have concerns too. So,
Mark, and I clipped that out because it wasn't part of the conversation about just that the news was coming and that there's a press release possibly on the way. But I actually went through that exact part of the conversation in my phone call. I said, I get that you're explaining the mechanics and how this all works and everything. And I appreciate it, but I'm not asking about the mechanics. I'm asking about how many shares AST is going to be taking on book entry. And I explained to her, and you can actually hear in the call that I put in the clip up there, that I re-explained it again to her, just as far as how it weights to my financial decision. But earlier in the call, I said, because she said, oh, there is no amount. We can take all of the shares. I said, well, no, hang on. That can't be the answer that you're giving here, because I can tell you right now that it's publicly available information that this company has 165 million issued shares plus an additional 40 million shares or whatever that was used in the acquisition of a company. So in book entry, your number should match Nextbridge Hydrocarbons' number when it comes to how many shares you're allowing on the incoming registrations to book entry. I said, your answer cannot be, we're going to take all of the shares and we don't know how many. Then she went to, I can't tell you. And I said, well, that's also not quite a correct answer. And then she went to a further answer. And so that was the third tier manager up that I was talking to. So I started with the base level employee, I went to a supervisor, and then that was the third level supervisor up that I was speaking to. And it was finally when she was pressed on that information, and I kind of quoted the shareholders' right of inspection statute to her that she broke and said, there's a press release coming, and that ended my pushing her for how she doesn't
right.
know that part of it. I said,
Right.
as a
Quick, guys, I
registrar,
gotta
like
go.
that's kind of your thing, right? Like as a registrar, you're the one person that should know exactly how many shares are going to be in book entry.
So, Huck, at every transfer agent, there's an account manager for each issuer. Now, that account manager can handle 50 issuers or 100 issuers, but you have to get to the right account. Yeah, I see Kevin Kevin agreeing, and Kevin knows that every one of these transfer agents has a specific account manager. So unless you're talking to the specific account manager, I still would take whatever they say with a grain of salt. Like again, I don't even know if they can balance their checkbook. Maybe they interpreted you, or you'll take all of your shares. Yeah, because they're doing good customer service, and that's the way it's going to be. But and you know, Huck, you're a very smart guy. You drill down into the information. I learned a lot from you on the MMLT stuff. In fact, you helped us, my firm, with a couple of other things dealing with MMTLP, and I'm very appreciative. But also, it's very difficult. You know, I keep going back to Tommy Boy. You know, you could stick your head up a cow's ass, but I'd rather take the butcher's word for it, right? Unless you're talking to the account manager who manages that account from Exbridge Hydrocarbons, you're probably talking to somebody with one hand tied behind their back. And you have to find out who that is. And once you find out who that is, you need to make a beeline to that man or woman and talk to them about this, because they will know more information on this specific issuer than the rest of the staff. And AST
So
is a great company.
I'll just ask a super quick question, and then and the hands. But I think Jonna will maybe even agree with this question because she was a party to it. Finding out who that account manager is, and I'm not sure if John has gotten further with this, but has been somewhat of a difficult road at times because they're either cagey about it, or they won't tell you who it is, or they say, well, we'll get your information and they'll call you back. Well, who's going to call me back? Oh, I can't tell. How is there a fiduciary responsibility that when you're calling a transfer agent or a registrar that they should tell you who the account manager is for that particular company or security?
No, but they may be stupid. If they can't balance their checkbook and may tell you who it is, I would rather call the CFO of Nextbridge and say, who's your account manager at AST? Why would they withhold that information from you? That's the simplest. You go direct path to Nextbridge. Just a quick email. Who's your account manager at AST? Because we're getting conflicting stories from various customer service reps there. And I'm sure that CFO would be happy to give you that person's name, because they don't want to be involved in bullshit. You know, they you know, especially the CFO, he's going to want to know if there's an imbalance, you're issuing too many stock, too many, too many shares, blah, blah, blah. So I think you need to find out from Nextbridge who the AST primary account manager is, and then you make a beeline to that person. That's just my recommendation.
Let's go to Alan because I believe that Alan needs to go. So go ahead, Alan, and then we'll go to Kevin B.
All right. Well, just a couple of things. I do have to go. I apologize. Um, Mark, Huckleberry, Busy, all of you guys that are in here, 100, Junk Savvy, I mean, everybody. I really appreciate everybody's eyes on this and looking at it and really, breaking it down and disseminating what it means. Richard, all of you guys have been amazing. Thank you for what you're doing for our community. I just wanted to say that. I do have to go. I did want to ask you really fast, Mark, were you aware that AST was recently merged into another company where it was acquired? And this may be, language, coming from, a new rep that doesn't know what they're looking at. They're because of the fact that they're in this process of transition. We could be getting bad information. That was another thought I had. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and I'll go from there. But thank you guys, for all of that you do. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, Alan, you're probably right. If they're going through a merger, they probably merge customer service, and customer service can only tell you what they see on their screen. That's why you need to get to the account manager. But you and I have an appointment tomorrow to talk about your case at 11 a.m. So I will be calling you tomorrow at 11 my time.
Perfect, sir. And I cannot wait to see you then. And you guys all, thank you again. You guys have been absolutely amazing. And please don't rush to any judgments until we have actual information we can work on. This is just another piece to the puzzle. Let's put it in there and let's see what this is all going to mean.
Thank you, Alan. Go ahead, Kevin B. You have the mic.
Thank you, Busy. Pardon me. The point, I want to make 2 points. The one is that the way the transfers work, when you request your broker to transfer shares or to put your shares in your own account, it's not shares that get added to the count. It is shares that gets taken out of your broker's street name account and transferred into your account. So the total that the call center lady sees on her screen or person sees on her screen isn't going to change. That stays the same. It's not a case of they're at 100 million now, and every time somebody transfers in, they're going up and up and up. What's happening is that the street name balances are going down and the beneficial holder balances are going up, and they net out. So it's not like we're trying to get to a specific number. We're trying to get rid of the shares that are in street name. That's the goal. And that will only happen up until a point when their balance is zero. That doesn't mean that they don't still have shareholders with shares in their account. It just means that those shares that are still left in brokers' accounts are being offset by shorts, by people who owe those shares.
Kevin, I completely agree with you, and I think it's really good information that you're pointing out right there. Earlier in the call, and I'll try and clip it out and make a nice little thing, because the lady that I was speaking to did an amazing job explaining how the process, the mechanics of exchanging the bulk certificate that the broker has, and that certificate is essentially canceled. She told me the fees that go into it in the process, that your shares are issued to you in your name, and that bulk certificate with the new amount goes back to that broker. So you're right, that number AST has should be a consistent number, and that was where I was getting at. If all of a sudden that number is different than what expectations are, how did we arrive at a different number? And so that's kind of just the vetting and the clarification of the information, because like you're saying, that number shouldn't change. So
Right.
if shares are incoming, that shouldn't raise the number. The number just means that less shares are in street name and more are in book entry versus vice versa. But the total ceiling of how many shares would be allowed from the issued shares to be in book entry should be a consistent number.
Right. And then the other point Mark alluded to, and that is that the 165.5 that we keep on referring to is what it was on December 12th. That excludes the new shares that we issued, which Nexbridge Hydrocarbons has been really good at communicating their number of issued shares. They do it almost every time they announce a transaction that has an impact on issued shares. They announce the new total. I've seen that in their press announcements. And the last number I saw was something like, and I don't know the exact number, but it's 240 something million, which makes perfect sense. It's the 165 plus the additional shares for the new acquisitions that have been made. So it may be that the number the lady sees on her screen includes the new shares that have been issued after the December the 12th. And that might be another explanation as to why it's higher than 165. But you know, I think the corporate governance is in place. That's my opinion. I you know, from what I've seen in Nexbridge announcements, they're pretty thorough and they have that data in them. And I think the company is the one to answer the question if there's an imbalance, because the transfer agents work for the company. You know, that account manager is easily contactable by people who are at Nexbridge Hydrocarbons, either the CEO or the CFO, or can be in contact with them and can clarify any of this pretty quickly. And I'm pretty sure that they are watching to see the movement out of street name into beneficial holder names. I'm pretty sure, because clearly that's what their goal is is to get their shares in beneficial holder names. I mean, the NewCo transaction pretty much tells us that.
Mark, did you want to respond to Kevin B, or should I move on with Hans?
No, I just been giving him 100% in everything he said. I agree with
Right.
him 100%.
All right, so I'm gonna let Savvy and 100. They probably wanted to chime in. If you guys have other questions, then I'll move on to our hands.
I just want to let everybody know that I did submit those questions to NextBridge through Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer. And in my list of questions were specific questions to would AST be accepting from the brokers for one-to-one transfer more than 165.4 million shares? So maybe they'll get that, maybe they won't. Maybe this press release is a reaction to that. Who knows? But wanted everyone in here to know that we did get those questions submitted. There were 13 questions.
Thank you, Savvy. Go ahead, 100, real quick.
I was going to mention something very specific in regards to what tactics an issuer can do by using the services of a TA, but I'm going to reserve comment because I've already addressed it last night. I will just say that there's an example of another company that has identified differences of share structure and how it's been recorded via the allocation each broker. However, that matter has not been shown at an elevated court of law. So I'm not sure if it's a matter of precedence or not. Maybe it's a discussion I might have to have with Mr. Pasil later. But it definitely has been recorded in a court of law. So I'm wondering here if AST is going to record everything and anything for specific reasons of that nature as well.
How you love that? Go ahead.
I think we're missing one key element when they say the legitimate shares as of the record date, and the record date was December 12th, right? Officially, the way the way it ended, it was before it got deleted. The record date was the 12th after all this fiasco, right? Well, what I'm saying is if AST is accepting all the shares as of the spinout, well, by that time, the share count wasn't 165 million. It was the inflated number that nobody knows what it is. And they're going by one number while all in all, everybody's thinking about a number that they're not really even attuned to, because the numbers we get are from 14 months earlier, and the 165 million is non-existence at this point. Am I still on here?
I can hear you, how yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
Well, oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Doc.
No, it does totally make sense. And I wanted to ask a question, especially while we have Mark in here, just because it's might actually answer a mechanic's question. So if we review the letter that was written back and forth between NextBridge and FINRA that was just recently made available, they clarify in there, so to end all be all, they say there's no QSIP for NextBridge hydrocarbons, which is what we've always kind of said, but that is coming from FINRA. There is no QSIP. So all of these contra QSIPs cannot trade because of the way that part of the mechanics works. So you can't just list whatever contra QSIP you want. You'd have to have a registered QSIP from the issuer, and then that would be assigned a ticker from FINRA, and then that would be what would be listed. So because there's an unknown amount of shares, whether that's 169 million or whether that's some multiple above that, could NextBridge be casting a large enough net, so to speak, so that they are making the pool large enough for any shareholder that wants to come in, so that eventually, if they wanted to create a resolution with FINRA where they were going to register a CUSIP and create whatever resolution, whether it was 2 days or longer or shorter, I'm not saying a time frame. I'm just saying if they wanted to register a CUSIP and they wanted it to be inclusive of as many shareholders as possible, would they want a large enough authorized base to allow any shareholder that was going to register before they created any kind of CUSIP action or otherwise? Because the contra CUSIPs aren't going to trade. It'll be a CUSIP registered by the issuer.
So the answer, Huck, is they technically can. Technically, it can. The issuer is the master of its own destiny. If it wants to cast this wide net and have all these authorized shares for some sort of corporate activity in that direction, and then register those shares on an S1 or Form 10 or whatever, then yeah, they could technically do it. And that's a very interesting scenario that I didn't think about, but they definitely can do that. They have the legal right to do that, so they can.
Thank you for that
So
answer.
if they do that, then the best thing would probably be to go to AST.
Well, they have to because AST is the transfer agent. See, the transfer agent has to work with the issuer. The transfer agent is a service provider. They're not the law. They act as a gatekeeper for all stock in and out of the company, right? So they're just a service provider, and they're under contract. So they kind of have to listen to the administrative side of the issuer on what the issuer wants to do. And Huck, that was very very interesting, because I would give that a possibility of what may be happening in the background. I don't think it's a big possibility, but now that you brought it up and I think about it, it's definitely a possibility. So
Let's go to Mike Q. Mike, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm fixing to go Doku on it on this. Hey, y'all gonna see something part of me you ain't seen in a while. It's 8 months, and I'm tired, and the community's tired. We're tired of people not telling us shit. We're tired of NextBridge not telling us shit. We're tired of FINRA not telling us shit. We're tired of people telling us no. All this crap we speculate about could be done away with all if someone would just tell us something. I'm tired of people not telling us anything. We have to fight and kick and scratch to get any information. It's been that way for 8 months. NextBridge, I thought McCabe was going to be more forthcoming. I understand the legal stuff, but you know what? There's people hurting in this community, including me, including everybody. And we are tired of the crap. We are tired of having to fight to have a company just give us a number. How much is an AST? How much have you if NextBridge Hydrocarbons goes around us and screws up our situation in Congress, guess what? We're going to need a lot of marks. A lot. A lot of lawyer business going to be going on. From Tennessee, from California, from Florida, every damn where. Because all I got to say is Richie, me, and a lot of other people are working their butts off trying to get information to the community so we can get Congress to do stuff. NextBridge comes out with some stupid crap with issuing shares or offerings or some bullshit. Man, when I hear this billion, it just in the back of my mind, I start thinking, what in the hell? Authorized, unauthorized, I don't really care. I understand that, one's one thing, one's another, but the fact of the matter that was even said, that was even put out, that that's a possibility, is pissing me off. Because guess what? We have to find out about it in some sort of roundabout way instead of people just up front telling the community or McCabe or the CFO or the FO or whatever the O is going on. Because, we're tired. I'm tired. I'm hurting.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Big Mike.
Yeah, yeah, Mark.
Listen, bud, you just made my bucket list. One of the things I want to do is I want to come down by you, sit on your porch, have coffee in the morning, and co-host a morning message with you because you are 150% correct. This whole exercise, since this whole thing started, is just a search for information because nobody's providing it. Everybody's withholding it. Everybody has different reasons for it. Maybe people feel we can't handle the truth. The community can't handle the truth. Maybe the truth exposes so much things that are so messed up beyond recognition that it will take years to straighten out. So you know what? You made my bucket list, Mike. I'm going to find a way to come down over the next 3 months. Have if it's okay with you, have coffee on your porch in that beautiful log home you have, and co-host a morning message with you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but it's just sad. It's just sad for all that we've been through. It's been sad for all the community. We fight. We do stupid shit for nothing, and people don't realize that they're hurting our own people.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I
It
have to.
doesn't matter. I just want people to be honest, for God's sake. Just for once, quit lying to us. Just tell us the truth. No matter what the truth is, please tell us the truth. We want to know what's going on. It's been 8 months, for God's sake. And it just pisses me off because I know my community members are hurting. I know the stuff that goes on. I talk to Richie. I talk to other people, and it's next bridge better not. All I gotta say is, bottom line, my last word is, next bridge better not fuck it up. I just got with Congress. That's all I'm going to say by doing something stupid right now. Of all times, between now and August 11th, when Ginzer's got to pony up his ass between the QFR he's got questions and the letter from the 15 congressmen. We're working to they're getting more congressmen and senators on board. And if Next Bridge, so help me God, if they screw it up with some sort of share bullshit that makes all those congressmen go away because of some sort of press release, I'm going to be past furious. And I won't be the only one.
So, Mike,
That's
listen.
all.
So listen. It's it's unfortunate for human nature that a lot of us will remember more negative shit than positive things. That's just like driving on the Long Island Expressway. You see somebody with a flat tire, everybody stops to look, and they're just thinking, "Thank God it's not me." So it's kind of like you don't know how other people feel till you step in their shoes, right? And I know how you feel. I know how the whole community feels. But for the same token, it's been 8 months, 230 or 40 days already. It's been ridiculous, but I want you to consider the positives, right? The positives that have come out from the community participation, from the community due diligence, that you pushed against the wall so hard, you've done something that not even the AMC community can do. You got Congress interested. Now you have them starting to take some action, and that's a start. You're getting them to start asking questions. That's huge. You're starting, you're making people are making beelines to AST, making beelines to Meta, making beelines. They speak with George. They speak with McCabe. They'll. It's a big push, and I know at times you feel like you're not getting anywhere. You're being strung along and you're not getting your answers. But for the same token, you have to reflect on what you've accomplished already. I mean, you guys have accomplished. I'm still like an outsider looking in on all this on you guys. You guys have accomplished more than I could ever imagine any group accomplishing, and it's still not over. It's in fact every day it's like a new beginning, Mike. So when I get your morning message and I see you on the porch, I get renewed hope. I feel your frustration, but I also take time to reflect for 10 minutes every morning on what a great job that you guys have been doing, because it's not like there's 100 lawsuits flying around. It's not like you guys have tremendous resources to go get lawyers and you know and you have JR and you have Richard and you have people as good as lawyers like Alan and Huck and John Junk and John and everybody. But you have to put things in perspective. 8 months ago, you were nowhere on this. Now you've made your mark. You've got into media. You're getting into the heads of Congress. You're getting to the heads of the executives and all the issuers involved. And I'm sure you're getting into the heads of the brokers. But you don't see that on the back end, right? So don't despair, Mike. If anything, again, I will do whatever I can to help anybody and the community. I don't ask for a dime. I don't even want to thank you because I'm so pissed off for you guys. It's just it just even my wife says I'm a changed person over the last couple of months because I can't believe the bullshit all you guys have suffered. And it's all because of a lack of information, but it's not for not trying. So don't despair, Mike. We're going to get to the bottom of this sooner or later. I wish it was sooner, but it'll come. It will come.
Well,
Mark,
I just want the community to. I just love the community. I just love everybody, and I know the pain we're all in. My pain, their pain, everybody's pain, and we're just tired. We're just wanting people to, you know, get some sort of cooperation, return an email. I've sent lots of emails to NextBridge, no, to that off the website. We don't ever get a response. Luckily, Jennifer gets somewhere with them, and hopefully the questions will get answered. And but it's just it's just been difficult for many people, and we all just want some just like I said, I hate that I ranted, but it's just it's very frustrating. Like you said, it's frustrating. It's frustrating to everybody, and everybody, and the problem is we all get so frustrated. We lash out at one another when we shouldn't, and do just goofball stuff to hurt one another. And I just hope and pray to God that NextBridge doesn't do something ridiculous, and we can get resolution sooner rather than later. And I just love everybody, y'all.
All
Anyway.
right, guys, listen. I'm sorry. I gotta run. I got a big day tomorrow. I got a couple other things to handle, but I'm with you, and I'm trying to listen as much as I can and do as much as I can to help you guys. I get my DMs are blowing up, and most of I answer almost all of my DMs as soon as I can. It's like Pavlov's dog for me. But if you have questions, feel free to DM me, and I'll do my best to try to bring some clarity to things. I hope the press release when it comes out is good news and clears things up. And if not, then we'll just wait for the next one while you're still pushing everything forward. So God bless all you guys and have a good evening.
Thanks, Mark.
Mike, if I could interject here a little bit from Texas. Realize one thing, that this piece of property is in the state of Texas. It is owned by the state of Texas. And the state of Texas is not going to let this thing falter, either for the state of Texas or any of the citizens of the state of Texas, which there are a ton that are in this stock. And knowing that the state's behind it, realize that they have way more power than anybody. Now, the next thing, I'm not sure, and I'm going to get some clarification, and I am meeting with 2 congressmen this month. I think that if they were really authorized, which we don't really know, but it's kind of from a telephone conversation, but if they were authorized, there's got to be something behind it, because let's face it, this stock is held all over the world, and we have, as I was telling somebody today, there's at least 3 types of shareholders. There's the people that actually have the shares and can move them to AST with normal brokers, that kind of a thing. that also includes the people that are having difficulty getting to AST. Then there's the second group that are tied up in IRA type accounts. And then there's the third of those poor people over in Europe that are in with that 212 who's just like screwing them to death. Excuse me. It's like being with the Robin Hood or the Weevil clan. And then there could be one more group. I will tell you that having a relative family person that worked for Chevron with acquisitions all over the world, one of the comments he made a couple of months ago is you got to get to the finite to figure out who owns shares, how many shares. Now, McCabe takes possession of the deal. He's the largest shareholder. He's probably worth $7 to $10 billion on this deal. He's not going to screw it up. You know, he's not some little guy out in an oil patch with one well going, hiding the amount of oil. He's risked his own personal money. And I think, to be honest, I'm just going to try to tell y'all, back away from the ledge of the tall building and figure out that with some reality, they are probably trying to get the correct amount of shares or who has shares. And that's part of this push to go to AST. Now, just because they authorize them to accept that many doesn't mean there are that many, doesn't mean they're going to dilute it. But somewhere to solve the problem, you've got to figure out who has shares. And, you know, and in what category. So putting all that in perspective, you know, I realize where you're coming from, and I'm hurting just like everybody else. But like I said, step back from the ledge and just give this a little bit of, and who knows, it could have been 500 million that they authorized and not 500 billion. But just realize part of this deal with going to AST is to get an accurate share count. No more, no less. Somebody's got to be, if we can't get the blue sheets, then you got to get them some other way, and that's obviously with AST. I will tell you that somebody sent me a deal about a lady with the SEC going to be in Dallas, Fort Worth. I'm not sure I really want to drive 5 hours each way and to hear some lady who's not going to really tell us anything that's hiding their incompetence. So you know, we're taking the attitude that I'm meeting 2 congressmen this week, one on Friday and one the following week. So we'll get something done, and just take it from there. I mean, I realize the pain, but at this point, kind of hold it back. Don't fire everybody up into a frenzy.
I'm going to let Mike respond, and then we'll move on to Hans.
I'm just not trying to. It's just the frustration for me and for the community members. MVP has you know, we hear, we wait, we listen, we work, we call, we do all these things, and we find out somebody on a call from AST, and the AST person could be complete nincompoop. Who
Correct.
knows? And you know, it could be 550 million. Could be, and that's the first thing I thought. This is a typo, because 500 billion seems astronomical number.
Correct.
I don't even think Exxon has but 400 billion shares.
Yeah.
So when you look at their total amount of shares, so I don't think that we're bigger than them. But anyway, you know,
Yeah.
I just
Just give
have
it
to.
time to work out. Just
Yeah,
take a deep breath and
it
realize that
just
everybody's working hard, and it could be a typo. It could be an idiot. Look, I'll tell you, I told somebody today, I still have this deal with my special needs grandson. I've been going back and forth with TD Ameritrade for months, right, since February. I finally got to TD Ameritrade yesterday, who gave me and said, "Oh no, they're at Schwab. You ready?" They've been telling me all along up into July that those shares were still at TD Ameritrade. The person at Schwab told me they've been sitting at Schwab since March. Classic, right? It's 10,000 shares. for my special needs grandchild that I'm trying to set up a deal for him that takes care of you know, his health for and care for the next 30, 40 years. But can you imagine it's why I said I really want to go see a lady with the SEC who's going to what, either A, not tell me, or B, say I take the fifth, or C, try to placate us. No, we're all doing the right things. And I know we're getting a lot of evidence and we're working hard, but take this thing as a little bit of a grain of salt. And trust me, I sold a multi-million-dollar business back in the 80s. It's kind of that same kind of deal. It's all the crap that ends up on the streets and everything else, and maybe somebody said something wrong, so calm down, have a beer or whatever, a glass of wine, and just give us a little bit of time to get to the bottom of it.
Thank you, MVP. Let's go to Anna and then Smokey.
Sorry, I lost my thought, Busy. I'm just going to drop down for tonight. Thanks for hosting the space.
No problem. Thank you, Anna. Go ahead, Smokey.
Hey, yeah, I want to reiterate what MVP was saying. Definitely step off the ledge. I definitely think that here in a few days, we're all going to be laughing about this in the background, going, yeah, that AST clerk really thought that it said 500 billion. I truly think that it's more of a situation of somebody didn't count their commas. I don't know. I could be wrong, but if I'm not, I still want to reiterate it is not that big of a deal. We just reached a pivot point basically with this S1 coming out. This is a huge, huge deal, and it's an incentive. It is an incentive. Nobody knows what this deal is going to be like, and if they did increase their share number, I like what Alan's thought was. This could be a theory of almost like a forward split. Forward split's not a reverse split. Don't be scared about that. They're going to give you more shares than what you have. So that's always a possibility, like Mark was talking about. This is a way for them to be able to get more capital. It doesn't dilute you in the now because as of right now, it's a private company. There is no value on it. They may be trying to expand and grow, and they utilize that as leverage to be able to do so, to be able to get those loans. Sometimes you need to be able to get lenders that way. And since they're non-transferable, non-tradable shares, it won't be dilutive in any way in that aspect either. They can't trade them, so they can't use them. Anywho, I definitely think that there is we all need to calm down, take a breath. Seriously, just take a step back and realize that they will come out with the information that needs to be brought out to you because they have to legally. And any information they're not sharing with you now, it more than likely is because they can't legally. McCabe is, from what I understand, from everything I've heard about him from several different sources now, he is a stand-up guy who will tell you it is straightforward. He is not, a bullshitter. He's just going to give you, it is what it is. Okay. So I'm sure that if he could say it and tell us, he would be out here doing it. He was as pissed off, if not more pissed off than anybody else out here because of his holdings alone. He had plans to sell too. He thought it was going to run. Sure. Everybody did. Everybody thought this was going to go crazy. So he's just as pissed off as well. He knows there's a problem. AST, I truly believe they're incentivizing you to go there because they want to be able to prove it. Now, I want to very quickly, because I don't want to take up the mic too long, give you guys what I was told several months ago from AST on how they are supposed to work the acceptance of your transfer of your beneficial rights to them. So NextBridge Hydrocarbons has the 500 million authorized shares. That means AST is able to accept that many shares, but plus, like was kind of stated earlier, they can accept as many as possible. They can hold them all, and they don't know what them all is because AST themselves, as far as like customer service agents, they don't know who has what, right? And if it goes over the allotted number that's supposed to be registered out there, which we know should be right around, I want to say 230 million to 250 million after the new allotments from McCabe and everything else. If it goes over that, at that point, they'll still continue to catch. You know, they'll still be that net for the catch-all, right? But at that point, they notify NextBridge. There's an imbalance. There's an issue. That's NextBridge's proof. That's what they need. They need proof. So that was, kind of what I wanted to get out there. If it does go over, it does. They are designed to catch it all. But there is basically a trigger in place that if it goes what is supposed to be registered, then there will be notifications set to who needs to find out. That's what I got.
Thank you, Smokey. Let's go with Mel and then Perry.
Hey, how's it going, bud? It's been a while.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Mel.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep, we could.
Okay. I saw the title of this and I just can't believe it. I mean, my trust was hanging on by a thread. But I mean, if these guys are 500 billion, I mean, are you serious? They can't really be authorizing that, can they?
Yeah, they can, but it's not a problem. You got to remember they're starting a new company. A lot of those shares may be designated for that, but again, there's not even any confirmation that this has happened. This could just be simply, like was said earlier, just a typo or a miscommunication. They couldn't count the right commas. It could just be something that simple.
Well, it better be, because I tell you right now, if that's even close to a real number that they would accept at AST, then the company's fraudulent. This whole thing is bullshit. I'm so pissed. I can't even. First it's 165 million, and 80, 90 million of those shares are locked up somewhere, so those can't go, and blah 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 blah. 500 billion? That's just like a joke to me. I can't even. I don't give a shit about some new company or not. That wasn't authorized. Those shares weren't issued to anybody. They didn't trade on the OTC. This is just like mind blowing to me. I can't. Just, I'm so disgusted. I don't know. Whatever. I just wanted to share my disgust, I guess. Thanks.
Hey, Mel, just real quick to clarify, I don't know if you were here earlier. Just want to be clear. 500 billion authorized does not mean issued shares. That's just a number that they're using on file.
But are they saying they're going to accept, up to 500 billion? So they're willing to accept all the fraudulent shares that these crooks created in the OTC. Is that what they're saying?
So we don't have any clarification on that. All we have is 3 of us called independently to different reps, and we all got the same information, the same number.
Hey, just to reiterate exactly what you're saying right there, the difference between the authorized and the outstanding. So the authorized share count of Torch was 1 billion shares. But in the exchange of shares in the merger from Torch and Meta, that's where you got the 165 billion shares after the 199 in the stock split and everything else. But there was 1 billion shares authorized from Torch, but after everything was accounted, there was only 165 million outstanding. So there can be 500 billion authorized shares. That does not mean that all of those shares are going to be outstanding. The biggest difference here that we're trying to get clarification with is exactly what you're saying right there. Is AST going to accept the book entry registrations of more than the issued original outstanding amount? Because that is the clarification factor here. So you could say 1 trillion shares. I really don't care how many authorized shares you say, as long as the outstanding shares is the number that I get to know.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. The whole purpose of setting up this AST was for the preferred, or what they turned into MMTLP. That's what this account was created for in the first place. So, right, or am I wrong on this?
So AST has always kind of been in existence. So AST is the transfer agent. They're the book
keepers, the official registrar for metamaterials. I believe they were the registrar and transfer agent for Torchlight Energy, and they're acting as the registrar and transfer agent for Nextbridge Hydrocarbons.
That's
But
not how I read the S1.
the place,
How I read the S1 for this
yeah,
whole debacle that FINRA halted and the whole bullshit that went on. The way I read it was that you were getting a 1-for-1 transfer, and then you can hold those shares either with your broker dealer, you can transfer them and have an account in AST. So I mean, now
yeah. So
we're talking about
right
other
now, so the way
company
that the
shares being held at
mechanics,
AST for the same thing. You know what I'm saying? It just the story gets more and more convoluted as we go.
well, you're not wrong at all. So your transfer agent has actually always been there. It's just not somebody that you ever deal with. When you have your shares at the broker has a bulk certificate, and your shares are held in street name, and the DTC technically is the person responsible for your shares. And the transfer agent has a bookkeeping process, and they say, okay, the DTC has this many shares recorded in street name, and then the DTC says, okay, this broker has this many shares, and this broker has this many shares, and this broker has this many shares. And then all of that information would be given back to AST. So AST has always existed. This S1 that you're referring to right now, I believe, is the subscription rights as to whether or not we want to keep our shares in street name or whether or not we want to transfer our shares to AST in order to take advantage of whatever the subscription rights are that are going to become available if that S1 is approved. So by transferring your shares, you're removing them from the bulk certificate. You're saying, I don't want to be a part of the bulk TD, Ameritrade, or E-Trade, or Robinhood certificate. I want my shares to be in my name. And then they would be in the book at AST under Mel, or at that point, you could request to have them certificated and sent to you in an actual physical form, which, it's like having the title to your car. It's kind of cool for a second, and then you realize that there's a lot of responsibility that goes along with it. But what we're trying to find out now is if people are doing the transfer over to AST, because the book entry cutoff, the registration that AST has, that's the official record. So TD, let's say that their bulk certificate says 40 million shares, but through failures in process and not accounting for who has what shares and allowing market makers to use gaps in policy, they've allowed 100 million shares to be created. So TD, as far as they're telling AST, they have 40 million shares, but on TD's books, let's say that there's 100 million shares. We're trying to find out, is AST going to allow more shares to be registered on their books than what was outstanding and authorized at the time of the transaction? And one idea that I had presented is that Nextbridge Hydrocarbons could possibly be creating a big net or a big pool
Well, next
to
bridge would
gather
be
as many of
directing.
these shares as
Correct me,
possible
Huck.
together
I'm
so that they
sorry.
can.
I have a few comments on some of the things that you've been saying. One, an AST would move at the direction of Nextbridge Hydrocarbons. Period. They work for them. They're not an independent agency that's just going to do whatever the hell they feel like. They're going to do what Nextbridge tells them to do. Two, this new S1 deal with the show, whatever the hell it is, where they're giving 10% of blah 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 blah. That's not even what I'm talking about. Why they're doing that, what the game plan is, who the hell knows? They're not telling us, the shareholders. They're not telling me. They tell you. They didn't tell me why or what's their game plan, or they haven't told me a damn thing. You know what TD's telling me? They're moving my shit to Schwab. I got 30 days or whatever the hell they're telling me. So they want nothing to do with it. Or maybe they found a way to bail themselves out of it. Who the hell knows? But nobody's telling me a damn thing. Now, this whole new scenario, you know what? I don't want any part of it. None. Zero. You know what I want? I want my damn money.
Amen.
I'm just so
Amen.
sick. So sick of the story changing. That's my problem. The story continues to
Hey
change.
guys, nothing has
Something new
changed.
is
Let's just relax.
something new is thrown at me, and it's just so frustrating. I want to echo what Mike was saying before. I'm just so like, you got to be kidding me. And nobody's coming out to say a damn thing about, anything. Like, no comment on anything, nothing. They got nothing to say. You know people are hurting and got screwed on this deal. We thought we had until the 12th, right? I was ready to sell.
All right, thank you, Mel. I want to go to other hands. I know they've been patiently waiting, and I believe some of us share your same frustration, Mel.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, bud.
Thank you, Mel. Go ahead, Perry. You have the mic.
Hi, guys. I apologize. I'm coming in a little late. I just kind of saw the headline for this.
Perry, you're coming in really low, buddy. You have a headpiece?
No, no.
Can you drop down and I'll bring you back? Wow, I'm getting a lot of feedback.
All right, sure.
I'll try back. Let me try him again real quick. Sorry, guys. I'll get to you guys right now. Let me get notoriety up here. Yes, Perry.
Okay. Like I was trying to say, hi everybody. I came in late, so I don't really quite get my head around what actually is unfolding. So I don't know. Maybe somebody can catch me up, like where this is coming from, and what it possibly means or whatever. Like, is it just a case of maybe somebody slipped up and let something out that shouldn't have, or
Perry, there was status play. Actually, contacted and recorded them, and then we verified it with two other people calling in, Alan and Huckleberry, and they all say the same thing. So it was three different reps,
from
three different days.
From AST.
From AST. So we're just before the community starts calling and they get the word that that's the authorized share count that is showing on their screen. We wanted to put this forward just try to calm the nerves, because I'm sure that a lot of people are going to transfer their shares to AST, and once they hear that number, everybody's going to go into panic. So might as well come to the community and share their information and talk about it, and that's what we're doing here today.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it wasn't some kind of Freudian slip where this is what somebody has found out at how many shares are out there or got, and somehow it's a miscommunication in that end of it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like I say, I'm just coming in late and I'm just trying to get my head around whatever's being said, but I was just trying to get a grip on it. I'm not upset yet.
Sorry, guys. Huck, are you busy over there? Because I need to go to hands. Either that or I need another co-host. Let's go with, it was going to be Perry and then Tex. Tex, you have the mic.
Yeah, thanks. So, I haven't accepted that the information you guys have pulled is not a mistake at their end. I think you've done a good job to extract that information, but just parking any doubts about it. So, initially we understood there was 165 million placeholders distributed. Then in the MMTLP era, they executed the S1. They told us that they would now allow up to 500 million authorized shares in the filings. And if my math is correct, 500 million to 500 billion is now a 1,000 times increase in authorized. So if you take a look at a different way, like if you compare that against the original 165 million originally distributed, that's a 3,030 times increase. So these are actually like incredible numbers, right? And as a shareholder, it is. I agree with Mike and I think it was Mel in some concern in hearing these numbers. So although they are not outstanding at this stage, it's that concern of the bait and switch and what happens to our interests, right? So I suspect they don't need it anywhere close to the 1,000 times towards a subscription rights offering that was suggested earlier, particularly by Smokey. And what I'd encourage everyone to do is like stop, you know, if you can, I don't know if you heed what I'm saying, but like stop making excuses for these guys. Let's like, is it reasonable for us as shareholders to request a shareholder meeting at this time to provide sufficient explanations and question and answer? So that's really all I wanted to say. You know, these things need to be clarified, and given the situation we're in, I mean, to put it kindly, like that's all I'll say. We're in this mess, right? So why are we here hearing from people trying to tell us further dilution isn't a problem, that they need 1,000 times the, you know, it's just ridiculous to make excuses. So let's just get the answers from the company. So that's all I wanted to say. With that, I'll drop down. Thanks.
Thank you, Tex. Go ahead, Tom.
Busy, I can co-host if you need.
Well, this is disturbing information. We're just going to have to wait and see if it's accurate. Hopefully, in the next couple of days, we can get an idea of what's going on. I still do believe that the easiest path to resolution of this
Hello?
situation is for NextBridge to have as many shares as needed to solve the short, and it's never going to be 500 billion. But I hope that number's an error. But I what I'm thinking is going to happen, and I have no idea, but my guess is NextBridge tries to force either a share imbalance in one broker or fill the entire thing. Step one. Step two, now they've proven illegal naked shorting. Step three, they say, okay, do the share count, please, and figure out how nasty this situation is. Step four, okay, here's the situation. There's 800 million of them. Well, NextBridge now has a solution to say, if you guys really don't want to go through years in court and deal with all this, we actually have the 800 million that we could give. Now, we're not going to give them away for free. You're going to have to pay. And, you know, if they settled on a number that no one's going to really like to hear, but I mean, it could be like $100, then for 800 million shares, that would be $80 billion. And then $80 billion, half of it could be paid by the shorts, then they go out of business, and then the rest has to be covered by the DTCC. But that would provide a possible path towards a resolution to this thing that wouldn't drag out in court for 4 or 5 years. And the result of it would be you get a highly diluted, everybody would still get an expert share, but it would be incredibly diluted, but you would still receive a dividend of like $100. And then it's all done and it's all over with, and your piece of NextBridge is only worth $10 now or whatever, but you do get that dividend. So I think whether it's 500 million or whatever that number ends up being, I think it's just there to be part of a possible solution down the line if everybody agreed this is the only way to solve this. And it could be done in a reasonable amount of time, not 5 years in court trying to sue every broker and all this stuff. And I know most people don't want to hear that, but I think the 500 billion, that's just silliness, but they may need 1 billion. They may need 500 million. I have no idea, and none of us do, until we fill up one broker or all of AST, then we move to the next step. But them not disclosing more information is it's very hard on us.
Thank you, Tom. Let's go to Sam. Are you still up here, Sam? Did Sam drop down? Yep, he did. Let's go to Not a Righty.
Thanks, Busy.
I think Tom, who just spoke, actually had a lot of valid points, which I probably would have made. But the primary reason I raised my hand is because AST will not accept more than the issued number of shares. And to have any discussion that flies in the face of that statement is completely irresponsible. Like, people are getting worked up over nothing here. AST is there to keep track of the issued shares. Yes, there may be a shit ton of them authorized, but their job is to keep track of the issued shares. And if more than the issued amount of shares shows up, then Greg McCabe has won. He has accomplished his goal, and AST is not going to take those shares. They're going to turn them away because they're not issued. And I'm sorry, I know I'm getting a little upset here, but there are a lot of people on this call that are pretty upset because I think they believe that those shares will be accepted because it's been implied that we don't know whether or not that's going to happen. We do know whether or not it's going to happen. That's why AST exists. They are the bookkeeper. They are the record keeper. They are the transfer agent. Their job is to make sure that counterfeit shares don't make it into circulation. So we can just put this to bed right now. That shit is not going to happen. And, I don't want anybody getting upset and offing themselves because they think that their shares were just diluted. They were not. I think I've made my point, but having any kind of discussion about whether or not they're gonna allow more than the issued numbers of shares to be transferred there is friggin' absurd, and we shouldn't be having that discussion because for the people who don't understand it, they're gonna leave this conversation assuming that's accurate, and it's not. So that's all I've got to say. I appreciate the mic. Y'all have a great night.
All right, let's go to Drew. Go ahead. You have the mic.
Good evening. Thank you. Okay. I got a couple of points I want to make here. Okay. Just last week, correspondence with FINRA is released. I want to read a line from that correspondence with FINRA from Nextbridge Hydrocarbons. We do not want to dilute our stockholders, period. Number two, there has not been one single solitary time where AST has given us anything that could be regarded as credible, breaking, or newsworthy. Not one single thing. Nothing. Their frontline employees do not know anything. They're reading what they see off a screen, and it could be a simple error that they're seeing on their screen that they never corrected from the jump. And let me say something else. If indeed this share increase were to happen, we would definitely not hear it from AST first. Nextbridge Hydrocarbons would have let us know that first, but they have absolutely no urge, none, to dilute their shareholders. McCabe offered these subscription rights. He didn't have to. That was a gift to shareholders that have been dragged through the mud. That's really what that was. It says it in the PR that because he wants to create as much value under his tenure as chairman of the board, he was issuing these rights, these subscription rights. So I don't believe AST. I don't think this is credible. I don't think there's going to be a PR. No kiss, no bang, bang. I don't think it's going to happen. And I even went as far as to put out my own press release that says that if indeed they do release a PR tonight, and this was about an hour ago now, if indeed they do release a PR tonight that states that the share count has been raised to 500 billion with a B, which is bonkers, I will pour a cup of hot urine all over my face. And if they release any PR tonight, I will appear in Mushroom Space on Friday and sing I'm a Little Teapot. No PR, no share increase, no credibility at AST, no kiss, no bang, bang. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Busy, you can feel free to kick me out if you'd like.
Let's hope for that PR. I want to see
Yeah,
that cup.
I know.
Hey, Drew, can I ask a question?
Please,
we're gonna
please.
This is this is the same
and
question.
I'm not knocking you. I'm not knocking
asked.
Huck. I'm not knocking Alan. I'm knocking AST. Let me make that very clear.
Right.
Okay.
And
Let status plate speak.
Of course.
Bruce.
So this is why we came forward with it, because this is the information we were given. So we just wanted people to do what they can with it and, you know, figure out whatever is possible. So my question that I'll pose to you, because you say the same thing, is that they will not accept a share past 165.4 million. So I think all of us in this room, or at least most of us, believe that there is a share overage. If I get share certificates from my broker and I'm holding them in my hand and AST says they're full, my broker won't take them back. What do I do with them?
That's your liability. That's your broker's liability to take up with you. That's not AST's problem. AST didn't sell you the shares. It's like saying you went to the bank and the bank gave you a $20 bill that you can't use. You don't take it up with the merchant that they won't take your fake $20 bill. You got to go back to the bank that gave it to you, right?
But if every broker is issuing, you're saying whichever broker can get their shares out the fastest wins, right?
No, because no, it's not whatever broker can get their shares out the fastest. Because if the assumption is that there's an overage, then the brokers won't be able to get them out as fast because they only have one master certificate to break shares off of. So if the broker, in other words, is past their allotment and they issue you shares that they know that will not be admitted to AST, your broker is committing fraud.
But the master certificate is being held by AST.
No, what I'm talking about is their bulk certificate that the brokers have.
The brokers don't have it.
I'm talking about the allotment that your broker has. If they issue more shares than that allotment, they are committing fraud, period. That is fraud. That is 100% fraud. It's just like I said, if you go to a bank and a bank gives you a fake $20 bill and you go to 7-Eleven and the guy at 7-Eleven tells you to take that $20 bill and stick it because it's fake, you don't take it up with the guy at 7-Eleven. You take it up with the bank that gave you the bill.
Okay, let's 100. Did you want to chime in on here before I go to other? I know you took a mic.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
We can't hear you. You gotta stick that earpiece.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, much better. Go ahead.
All right, so I just wanted to identify the level of importance of why the TA matters, why it's normal practice to call the transfer agent to determine what the current share structure is. And when there's a difference between the state and the TA, it identifies that a corporate action is pending and that the state would need to be updated at some point in the future. And because we see a new S1 that determines a new company is being created as a subsidiary, it would make sense for the authorized share structure to be increased to protect the investment, one, to have controlling interest, and two, for any future financing that may be required. This discrepancy needed to be cleared up. I'm glad that Basil came in and Richard came in just to make sure that we were all on the same page, just in case other investors that come into the space that are not educated on these normal practices don't take it the wrong way and are not misled.
Yeah, but Daniel,
That's
500 million to 500 billion. If there was going to be a share increase, it wouldn't be that much.
Yes, I understand, and I realized it even triggered me at when I first saw it. But then I realized also that you can use an exorbitant amount of authorized shares in the near term, and then make an amendment later in the future to decrease that AS and still be in controlling interest of what you're trying to accomplish as a company.
Yeah, well, I still stand behind my bet. I still stand behind my bet.
I would anticipate that the 500 billion will be changed and decreased at some point in the future as this S1 is amended as well.
But you are taking as gospel what the transfer agent is saying. And I've called the transfer agent and I've bounced around and I've gotten as high up as I possibly could. And the transfer agent and I recorded the call and posted it on Twitter. The transfer agent made it perfectly clear to me, perfectly clear to me. They are not authorized to take in more than what was sent out. And that is the amount the amount that they are authorized is 500 million. It's on the recorded call. I find it extremely unlikely and not credible that this transfer agent, who has a history of giving people misinformation because their frontline employees don't know their ass from their elbow and don't have access to this information, I find it incredibly hard to believe that they would break this news before Nextbridge does. And I stand by my bet. If I'm wrong and that PR comes out, it's piss face for me.
Well, thank goodness it was identified that we should probably contact the CFO of AST to determine the account manager so that we can get accurate information. Having said that, I do not hold the transfer agent as gospel. They are just a servant to the company. What I do hold as holy grail is the state of incorporation, which in this case is the state of Nevada. And when the numbers don't match what the TA says, then I start asking questions. That's
Yeah,
just normal.
and I agree with asking questions, but I think a good way to start this conversation would have been, or to continue this conversation would be to stick the word allegedly in there somewhere, because that transfer agent has not given us one single piece of credible information since this mess started. Not one.
Okay, I gotta jump in. Allegedly, what they're seeing in their screens and they're reading back for 3 different reps, 3 different community members. It's not allegedly.
No, it is alleged.
And on
Until it's
top of that,
confirmed by the company, it's alleged. They're alleging it.
so to Andrew's point, I agree with you, but also Basil did come in here and he did confirm that it is not alleged. It is actually confirmed that it was changed. It's just not updated yet.
He did not say that it was changed. He did not say that he was privy to firsthand knowledge that it was changed.
Did I mishear
Yes,
that,
sir.
Busy, when he came on?
Yes, sir, because I was listening.
It's recorded. So, but I really do want to move out to hand. So,
Yeah, Busy, I'm going to drop down, but thank you very much for the mic. I just wanted to clear that up. I don't believe this, and I don't think it should cause any panic or hysteria or worry. I heard the concern in Mel's voice, and that's why I wanted to come in here and grab a mic. So thank you for letting me do that. I don't want anyone to feel that way. I don't believe this, not for a split second. Thank you very much, Biz. Have a good night.
So let's go. It was Steph, and I know Steph, you came back up and dropped down, so I'm going to go to you and then Devo. I see you. Go ahead, Steph. And anybody here, Steph? Steph, you have to mute yourself.
I did it again. I talked this whole time
ahead,
without
Steph.
the mic.
Go ahead, Steph. And I'm adding people that are waiting on here, so if I drop you down, please,
I just wanted to echo that this information is fresh. It's coming at us when we're 8 months into this, and so a lot of us are still very raw. And so I'm just imploring everyone to take a deep breath and not to make any decisions that are panic driven, and to, like some things have already been said, wait for the company to come out with information, a PR. Do your homework, but don't make an emotionally fueling charged decision that you can't necessarily take back. And then also, I'm wondering if I should start a pool or a raffle of some sort of whose bucket of warm urine it'll be that Drew has to pour on his face. I'm just curious. Maybe I'll take that up with him.
Please. I hope I win.
Oh,
Not just
geez.
kidding.
Okay.
I'm
Thanks,
with
Busy.
you. No problem. And again, thank you for patiently waiting, Steph, and everybody that's waiting. Go ahead, Devo. You have the mic.
Hey, just quick notice. On their Nextbridge Charger conference, there still hasn't been a public posting yet or any news. So I'm guessing it's Hawaiian time, which is like 2 hours. I highly doubt, like what Andrew said, the AST was that source was reputable. But anyways, I'm busy. If you need a co-host, let me know. I'm available. I actually got home from work, so all right. It was actually MVP chair and then my Q and then swing and then D.
Yeah, Devo, I'm not gonna be running this for too long. Probably another 10 minutes. I'm just gonna get through hands. We ran here for a while, and I'm gonna put Sam before anybody else because he had a drop and he was on the list. Go ahead, Sam. You have the mic. Go ahead, Sam. I know that you were here waiting and
hey, I
you...
appreciate it. So
Yeah, as far as whether there's any legs to the authorization of the shares, the only thing that I can think of, let's assume for a New York minute that this is correct. Okay, um, what makes you automatically think that this is a necessarily a bad thing for NextBridge Hydrocarbon and for us as shareholders of NextBridge, or potentially shareholders of NextBridge Hydrocarbons, if you believe you actually either have shares or placeholders? What would make anybody think that that's a bad thing, and that we wouldn't benefit in
Mike,
some regard?
100. I see Mike trying to.
Sam,
Yes,
Sam, I'm country, but don't let that fool you. I've been trading stocks for a long
I've
time,
been 40 years
and
in
here's
myself.
oh, and how many times have you been sitting in the screen when you saw an offering out of the blue by a company and watched your money just fall off a cliff?
Yeah, but this is different.
How,
This is different. This is a private
but
company,
but I
so
understand
you
that. But
can't you
I'm
can't
just saying
compare that, Mike. You can't compare it.
every time, but every time, Sam, every time when you see these things out of the blue, when it's not something that's presented correctly,
Okay,
is when that kind of stuff happens.
Mike.
It's nefarious.
Let me ask you a question. Are,
Sure,
do you want a solution to the problem? Yes or no?
of course.
Now, do you want? Uh, Look, everybody, and I think everybody and their mother wants our 2 days of trading. Whether that's going to happen or not, I have my own opinions, and I'm not sure if that will ever happen. But let's assume for a second, okay, that there's 200 million shorts out there that need to cover. Some legit, mostly counterfeit. And let's just argue. Now we're just spitballing, okay? Uh, Next bridge goes to the people that are short and offers them, let's say, I don't know, $100 to buy in. Now, because we're going to be diluted, okay? I don't know what the property is worth. It's probably worth what, 40, 50 to $100, on the high end, maybe a little less. I
Probably.
don't know.
Yeah.
But let's say now we're a fully functioning company, and we get a dividend, yeah, and because of the dilution, and we have NextBridge hydrocarbon shares. Now, let me ask you this: if that were the case, would you be upset at that?
No, no, Sam. But here's what I'm telling you is what bothers me. What bothers me is that we have to find out from AST.
Well,
Or
I'm
this
not
stuff
sure.
has to materialize. Well,
Yeah.
I'm with you, the nincompoop, the typo, whatever. I feel that. But what I'm saying is we don't get what frustrates me and frustrates everybody is we need NextBridge Hydrocarbons to be open, more open with the shareholders about what they're doing because it's been 8 months.
No.
And we had to have FINRA release the letters for us to find out about that other stuff because NextBridge didn't release it, did they? FINRA did. So I'm with you. I'm understanding that, and I agree with many points that you're making. But what the point is that the frustrating point with me and a lot of people in the community is
Yeah.
that NextBridge Hydrocarbons just isn't forthcoming. And when all of a sudden you say, "Oh, there's 500 billion shares,"
Yeah.
okay, it's like, okay, now wait a minute. You know,
I think
that's
we're
where I'm
jumping.
at.
Until they say that themselves, because I'll tell you this: I've had many conversations with AST over the last 8 months. One of which, um, and I'm not going to say I have it recorded or not because I'm in the state of California. Uh, they told me that there was 487 million shares that and that they were full already, and that they're just accepting them. Okay, now, do I believe that? Well, I believe that I was told that. Whether or not I believe that this guy had this information or that he was told by somebody at the water cooler, I don't know. But I will tell you this, I've had conversations with AST personnel where they don't know the difference between 500 million or 50 million. Now you put some more zeros on there, you know, I'm just saying. I hear you, and I'll tell you this. I heard one conversation. I think it was recorded or in passing. I think that it was a leading question, and it said, "Well, is it 5 billion?" She said, "Yeah, I heard about that." As a matter of fact, that there was some talk about the merger and this and that and the other. So I'm an investigator, okay, by trade, and I don't ask leading questions. Okay,
Hey, Sam.
yeah,
Damn, here we go. Here, since this whole rigmarole has this whole BS thing has started since the 9th of December, we've called brokers and we've got 15 stories from a broker with different people in the community
exactly.
column. We've got people calling. Drew is correct. Drew had a recorded call where they said they're not taking more. I remember it's been months ago. 165.4 million. That's all we're taking from AST. Then you
Right.
hear someone else calls. Who? Excuse me. Who knows? That's what we're tired of. That's what
Yeah,
we're frustrated with.
but
Because
that's
you get a different story, a different day from a different person, and you can't get anybody that wants to take it and put it on the record, official. This is what is going on, and
yeah,
no one wants to own up to stuff. That's what frustrates me. That's what frustrates the community members, and that's why after 8 months of that crap, we're getting kind of we're just
yeah.
tired.
But
Hey
but the
Sam, I
but the
wanted you
direction, the
Sam, because you're
direction, and
Sam.
yeah,
Hold on, Sam. Hey, you're an investigator. Now, there's a difference, 500 million to 500 billion. But you could see if maybe there was something done maliciously to try to trick the minds of looking like 500 million, right? And they added more zeros with 500 billion. Why am I saying this? We're coming together as a community to talk about this, and we talk about this with everything, whatever comes out, whatever news, to just make the listeners aware. Some people don't even call AST and not aware of what's going on. So this is the whole purpose of the space call, just to bring awareness of this is a recording that's out there, and then let's get two other community members to call in and record and verify this. Now we
yeah.
verify that that's what they're showing. Now, is
Okay.
that the correct
I
count?
I
Well,
I
we don't know. We haven't heard anything from experts, but now that the community is aware of this,
yeah.
maybe if somebody's trying to be nefarious, maybe we could put a stop to it.
Busy. I think you're 100% correct. I think could it be intentionally done to deceive? Could it be? Look, anything is possible. In the realm of possibility, anything is possible. Okay, I look now. The thing is that I believe that we're getting close to some kind of, I don't know if resolution, but some additional information. We have Congress. We have. I think I read.
Sorry, Sam, you have to mute yourself. I hit the U3 button by accident.
I'm sorry. So we're getting close. We've got some information. We've gotten Congress to hear us, not only hear us, but send out a letter, which is unbelievable. And I think today we got a couple more congressmen. Is that correct?
Yeah. Hey, Sam, we got a ton of hands here. Busy, you want to go to them? I mean, we get your point. I mean, I'm not being disrespectful, but we got like 6 people.
Okay, whatever.
All right. So you got Swing, Jeff, I think this guy Clav, Our Grande 100.
Y'all go ahead.
All right, go ahead, Jeff.
I know that Pedro's been waiting up here a while, Pedro. Did you want to chime in on this, Pedro? Because I don't see your hand up. I don't want to think. I don't want you to think I'm ignoring you, Pedro.
No, it's okay. I can wait. I was just going to give a couple thoughts, but let some other folks who've been waiting.
Hey, Pedro, you can
Okay.
you can go in front of me, my friend.
Well, I'll try to make it quick then.
Also, hi Jeff. It's so good to see you
What's
again.
up, Boo Boo?
Hey, Boo Boo.
I'm so excited to hear what you have to say.
Go ahead, Pedro.
What's up, Boo Boo?
Hey.
Busy, am I up? Or do you want me to wait?
We can hear you. Go ahead, brother.
I'm not going to speak to the AST stuff because I'm not that close to it. If it was a live trading stock, then I think there would be more legitimacy to, some nefarious games being played in terms of a misprint or whatnot to try to scare the stock or FUD. So I don't know if I'd put much into it. I'd certainly err on the side of just wait for more information. I started listening and I heard the gentleman before who said he's really tired, and I get it. I mean, I've been at this for 20 plus years. I'm tired too, and this stuff is off the pale in terms of just how crazy it all is. And I was just going to chime in to remind the people that are down, and which all of you are, in terms of being beat up and whatnot, because I didn't get caught in this, and it's not personal to me that way. It is in a different way. Is that you have to understand the tentacles of this are much bigger and farther and deeper reaching than you guys can even imagine. Okay, I'm just telling you, this is way beyond just MMTLP. The tentacles of this go much deeper. The enemy here and the other side is very powerful. They're well entrenched. They can pull all the levers. It is truly David and Goliath. And then I'll get really to another point here. When I saw the letter that was signed, and I looked at the signatures, when I saw Pete Sessions and Huizenga on there, my brain, I was like, this is interesting. These two guys are known hedge fund money takers. They have been for a long time. And politicians, as we know, don't do anything. They don't put their name on something unless it's politically expedient. They'll do it for a bill that they know is going to fail, so that they sign up for something so that they can say they were on board, but backroom deal, they know it's failed, and vice versa, and all the other nonsense. And I immediately started thinking, well, this is a big step for these two guys to put their name on a letter like this is a big deal. But also, these guys don't just do willy-nilly things that aren't politically expedient, particularly when it comes to big donors of theirs and a big donor base. So I'm wondering, in my brain, I was like, what is coming? What is coming? And I said, well, I wonder if like some kind of a settlement or something is coming, something's being worked on behind the scenes. And I'm not going to speculate as to what it may be from a settlement standpoint or whatnot. But there's a reason why these guys put their name on it, on their signature on that letter, because they want to be on the right side, so they can point back and say, look, no, we were for the people, we were with the people that were fighting here. And so all of this to me kind of fits into just a head scratcher. And then this comes out where they're talking about this crazy number of shares and whatnot. I would certainly not rush to judgment on that, but it certainly is peculiar. I mean, it certainly makes you scratch your head. And then I would also, and I'm not defending the company, NextBridge, at all or anything. I really don't. But reminder that I believe they were served with a Wells notice as well as John Berta, if I'm correct. Well, their lawyers are telling them don't say a word about anything, right? They're buttoned up. It sounds like they've been buttoned up the whole time. I personally don't know why. I think they should be much more communicative. But once you get a Wells notice in your lap, they're going to listen to their lawyers and whatever it may be. Not saying that they're guilty because of a Wells notice. A Wells notice is just, we want information. The SEC is asking you for information. It's not there's no bearing of guilt or innocence or anything else. It's literally, we want some information from you. So I don't know if I'm making a ton of sense, but I just tell everyone to take a deep breath. B, it's okay to be tired and whatever. because you're fighting an absolute monster that does not have our rights and anything about us it's mind-boggling. I mean, just Google FINRA's mission statement. It's to protect investors. It makes you want to just pull your hair out. You're like, what the hell? Why aren't these people helping us? And I'm telling you, the reason why they're not helping and why they're blocking in every way is that the tentacles of this go so much deeper and farther than anybody can imagine. It's not just MMTLP. If they peel the onion back on this one, you look out. It will expose big things. And so I would just from a motivational standpoint, hang in there. You guys are you're getting close to the third rail. You're getting letters. They're putting the reason why those two big senators or whatever they are put their names on that piece of paper. There's a reason. These guys don't do things that are not politically expedient, especially when it's against their big donor base, period. We're going to find out what that is. They want to be able to point to something so
Hey,
they
Pedro.
can. Yeah.
So on a good note, what you take the good out of it, you're saying that the fact that they signed that means that something's going to happen soon.
What I think is these guys don't do things that are not politically expedient, especially against a huge donor base that's been there for them for 20 years, right? So they don't just wake up one day. Trust me, they didn't just wake up one day and say, you know what, the MMTLP investors, their rights have been abrogated and they're screwed and we're going to help. That's not the way these scumbags work. We all know that. They're politicians. It's what they do. But these two in particular, you have junior politicians, junior congressmen and senators who are idealistic and they come in for the right reason. They put their name to something. But these seasoned old vets, no, they do things that are politically expedient. So yes, I believe something tipped their hand that they said, oh shit, I better cover my ass a little bit here. So I can look back and say, oh no, I was with the people, and it could be, I don't know what it is, but it's more. I just don't hold your head. Don't try to keep your heads up. You guys are. It's an amazing progress. It's don't give up. Don't slow down. There's going to be a resolution. You're going to win. The toothpaste is out of the tube. The crime scene has been kept still and untouched. There's breadcrumbs everywhere. There's more and more breadcrumbs daily. You're getting through to politicians, and we all know that we want to get politicians to the point where they start to scramble and cover their ass. And that's what you want at the regulatory as well. You want internally, you want the SEC saying, no, to FINRA, we're not taking the fucking fall for this. You guys did this. And so that's what you want. And that's what you're pushing for. That's why you're pulling the sled forward, is to get to the point where all these DC scumbags start pointing fingers at each other, and one of them blows the whistle and says, I'm not losing my government pension for this. He did it. And then you get somewhere. And when I see people put the politicians like those two cats who are hedge fund dudes, trust me on this. I've been at this a long time. Those two are hedge fund dudes. They voted against the Short Transparency Act. They trust me. They put their name to something like this. They're making sure that they're being politically expedient so they can cover their ass. So just keep fighting, guys.
That's fine with me. That's fine with me, because I know he's known about it since November, so it's fine with me. We just want to get this resolved.
Correct. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why.
We just want to get resolved. I want us to win.
Right.
Should we go to swing, Busy?
That's to me, that's the canary in the coal mine.
That's all I care about. I want to win.
That's the canary in the coal mine that's starting to sing. That I'm in my brain, I'm going, okay, what's coming? Because these cats don't put their name to something unless something's coming. Have a good night, guys, and keep your heads up. It's going to get better.
Much. Swing, go ahead.
Hold on a second before you go to swing. Elf, can you check your DMs? Elf, are you there?
Yep, absolutely. Looking now.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Go ahead, swing. Thank you, Pedro, again for everything.
Hey, so we keep talking about this. All right, so what 100 posted earlier showed 500 million and then like an additional 50 million. So that's 550 million, not billion with a B. But what if NextBridge, Wes Christian, and John Berta know something that we don't? And in addition to that, we didn't know anything about the Bronco project. Okay, so if there's an acquisition that's about to take place or could potentially take place, Mark was absolutely 110% correct. There is a high probability that those shares were allocated for future. Now, if we really look at the big picture here, what if they've actually already determined the amount of the short? And what if that's not a make-believe number that they're seeing when they call AST, like Huckleberry, Status Play, and Allen? What if it really says 500 billion? Then what? Just a thought.
I'd like to add on to it since I'm the next speaker. Okay, so what I'm going to lay out right now is a blueprint. And that blueprint has presented itself from different tickers to show one common purpose. And I'm merging this blueprint together for a reason. And when you see, and I'm sure Jana is going to understand this more because she gets it. She understands it too. An issuer comes over and identifies that it is going to increase its authorized share count. It increases its authorized share count to maintain controlling interest on its company, its own property. When there is a short in an imbalance of shares that needs to be recorded via allocated shares per broker, the only way you can secure yourself is making sure that you have enough shares to cover anything that's possible. So during the increase of an authorized share authorized shares in that state that you're issuing for, okay, that you're approved for, you have controlling interest. You also have the ability to identify an anomaly. Now, once the anomaly is identified and is recorded at a later point in time, that authorized share count is reduced because the imbalance has been identified. Now, the next step is you go to the state and identify, are there any other possible threats or issues that the company is going through that may be a potential liability or risk on itself? If it's none, then you just proceed as normal standard practice with your corporate action and report it to the Securities Exchange Commission, and you go through the whole this different process. But here's the key. Here's what's important here. At the state level, if there is any evidence to suggest tortious interference of any kind, the state has the right to question via a judge and ask for a share count. Okay? They have that right as long as the company goes to the state and is able to provide that evidence. So, in accordance with the S1, the new one that justifies a change in corporate structure could be the reason why they increased the authorized share count, but to also record the differences so that at a later time and point, they could show proof in a court of law that there is an imbalance. So I hope you understand. This is a blueprint. This has happened with other companies, but they've tried it in different ways, trial and error. And you're at the point where MMTLP has proven a crime scene. And that's exactly what I feel is going on. So I feel for Mike. When you come onto a mic and you express your frustration and you're emotional about it, I get it. But I feel like this is a process that has to play out this way because NextBridge is not only protecting your property, but at the same time, trying to make a right of what the situation is, and they can only do it one way, by proving it in a court of law. So they have to follow it this way. It's confusing because if you don't know this and you don't understand the background of the tentacles that Pedro was identifying before, you'll never understand. You always get wrapped up in the emotional problems of it, right? So I hope it clarifies some of it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about and you want to have evidence to look it up, I mean, damn it, it's in my freaking icon. All three icons are in, all three stock tickers are in my icon for a reason. They are active crime scenes that are recorded in a court of law for different purposes. I mean, for different reasons to serve the same purpose. Those are the tentacles. That's the blueprint.
Thank you, 100. Go ahead, Jeff. Jeffrey, go ahead.
Hello. Hey, Mike. I understand exactly what you're saying, buddy. So I too was frustrated with it, and then kind of sat back and was like, hey, Next Bridge is like literally 7 people or like 6 people at the time. So I don't know if that kind of hinders them putting out stuff that makes us kind of feel better at ease, but I don't know. So like Pedro said, it is a shit show further than I think any of us can really understand. And I know it does take time, and it hurts when Pedro says that. Just have patience. Fuck, it's been 8 months. I mean, it's hard to think about that and think it could go for another 8 months. But yeah, I do agree with you, Mike. I just when this all started, I kind of figured and said that this was going to be a long process, and I believe we still have quite some time to go.
Thank you, Jeff. Agora Grande, thank you for patiently waiting. Go ahead, you have the mic.
Thank you. I need a factual piece of information. When a person calls AST, because I haven't, do they get, when they call, do they get a recording that says, by the way, this is being recorded for quality assurance?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Well, then I wanted to say to Sam, I am not an attorney, not legal advice, but I spent all night once researching the California case law with respect to recording. And if the recording, like for Fidelity, my broker, announces that the call is being recorded, you can lawfully record the call and you do not need to tell them. Sort of like if they've already announced that they're recording, you have the like privilege. So that's what I found in the case law, and it was specific to California. So that was it.
Hey, question. So, because I called, and I was speaking with FINRA at one point, and basically what I did is I called them and said, hey, like, I have a company and I want to list publicly, and like was trying to go about that route to get information. And I recorded the call, but because of the fact that they have a block, so if you record and they block it, so it actually doesn't record anything. And so I have the video, but it's literally just recording and there's no sound because they were blocking it. So are they legally allowed to do that, to block your ability to record when they're recording?
Never heard of that before. That's pretty wild.
What do you mean you never heard of it? You saw the video.
No, I mean, like, the way you just laid it out just made more sense. I don't know how that's played out where you can't allow the other party to record.
Because in that video, that's the video I have where he says that there's no problem if I've been trading it without any information or like without any registration with FINRA, and that we can go ahead and backdate that, and like it's quite incriminating, but it's nothing because of the fact that they had some sort of a blocker on.
All right, let's continue on with hands. Oh, you love that. How you love that. All right, DD Insights, go ahead.
On the blocking thing, I just know that the brokers that I've called, Fidelity does not block. When I go ahead and call.
Either how you love that, you have to unmute yourself, or DD Insights. Al, can you call them out, Dr. Ed? Maybe they can't hear me. I'm glitching.
Hey, how ya? Do you want to say your things? Hello? How ya?
The baby is sleeping. Alia, wake up.
And DD Insights, you keep on unmuting yourself. You can speak. Go ahead. All right. And I see Costa. Costa, I sent you a mic. I know that you wanted to say something, but you had to drop. So here I go again. It's your time.
DD Insights,
Costa.
you can speak.
He dropped down. There you go. He's coming back up. But I wanted, because Costa was trying to take a mic. So
Did you call me busy? I'm sorry.
yeah, is that DD?
Just swing.
Oh, Swing, no. I don't know if I'm glitching or not, but I'm calling out DD Insights. All right, nobody wants to talk anymore. So I guess we're.
DD Insights?
How you just got a hand up?
I know. I'm trying to call him, but nobody's saying
Oh,
anything. I don't know if they can hear me or not.
here I am. My
You
question
woke up.
was, what happened to the staffers versus FINRA, that thing that they did? Nothing ever came of that, did it?
I'm sorry. What? Can you repeat that again? How you love
In
that?
June, before they had their June recess, the staffers met with the people from FINRA to do some type of whatever they were calling themselves doing. It was a bunch of political theater, I called it. Whatever happened with that?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know what you're referring to.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Anybody,
they
Costa?
hyped
Go
it
ahead,
up
man.
to be
Costa.
like the real, like a really big thing, and it never happened. First, it got delayed, and then
Oh,
they
I
did
think I
it.
know. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think you were talking about. Shit, it was at a hotel that they were meeting. I think that's what you're talking about. They just FINRA was having their annual conference. I don't think any staffers were meeting with. It was just an annual conference.
No, it was the staffers, the congressional staffers versus FINRA, and I labeled it a celebrity softball game, and it was going to be meaningless because if they're only sending the staffers, it's because they weren't dedicated to the problem.
Can you send that to me, because I don't remember that. Somebody just texted me. Hold on.
I remember it.
They punted. The small group of people in the meeting was punted a few times, and the meeting was. I don't know what that. I don't know what meeting you're talking about,
It was
but maybe.
around the Memorial Day recess. Sometime around then, they were supposed to have it, I think June 5th or something, and then they didn't have it because everybody was leaving out of town and it got delayed. Somehow or another, uh, from my understanding, nothing came of it.
Yeah, I have a couple of people here taking a mic. Maybe they could chime in. Go ahead, Joe, and then I'm trying to get you up here, Jonna. Joe, you know what? How you love that is talking about?
Yeah, he's talking about the meeting that was supposed to take place with their top staffers. That's what you're talking about, huh?
Yep.
What's your question? What was your? I just got on this. So what was you talking about?
Whatever came of that? Did anything ever come of that?
Actually, they had a few staffers that had met with some lower line people of FINRA, but it wasn't the type of meeting that we was thinking was going to take place at first. We thought it was going to be with the congressman, but it's always, and Huckleberry and him was on a call with a representative with me, and he explained it. What usually happens when something like this takes place the staffers will have a meeting and determine the severity of the situation of what is taking place. It could be 1,000 different things other than the stock market. From there, they take that information and they gather it, and they get together and they see where it is to be prioritized for their congressmen to jump on it. In other words, you got, it's just like you have one thing taking place and something else happens, they'll put it above that. So that's what that first initial meeting was supposed to be, to take place. But
so can we say that has anything to do with where we are right now? Probably not.
Oh, me personally, I would. Yeah, hell yeah, I would. There's a lot of things that has taken place. Uh, 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 People having talks and stuff like that. It's pieces of this puzzle scattered all over the place that is getting to the position where we are now. Yeah, I would say that 100%. Did you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I heard you. I'm just trying to digest it.
I know. I think when me and you had talked, or you had brought it up, Howdy, you was kind of not very happy. I don't mean no disrespect to you.
Yeah,
but,
I wasn't happy at all.
Yeah,
I
remember that
softball game.
Well, and that's how it works, though, Howdy. On not just on everything, they can't have a meeting. Here's what there's 100 different things going on, right? So they can't make every meeting. So they'll put their higher staffers in these meetings with whatever's taking place. And it depends on the subject matter expert that they have in whatever field it may be, whether it be in the market, whether it be in, law enforcement, whatever it would be. Their subject matter experts would be in those meetings and dissect the information they got. They put it together, and from there, it takes off.
But we never really knew who was at that meeting, right? Whose staffer they were?
No.
I'm just trying to draw the lines and connect the people.
How you love that? I'm going to let John chime in, and then I got to move to the office.
Yeah, that's when we were trying to get John Berta to meet with the congressman, and it was actually not that. They wanted to do separate meetings. So that was months ago, but everything we've done behind the scenes has built up to where we're at now.
Wasn't that when
So you
James
can't
Angel
say
came
that
up?
one thing. James Angel had already met with them, and we were doing the big push to get John Berta in front of Congress, or to get them to meet with them. So yes, I know what you were talking about, but you got to realize that obviously 15 congressmen signing a letter pushing forward to Gary Gensler and to make him answer questions. The next step's a subpoena. So we're getting close, and the pressure's now on. Now a Democratic official that has backed it up. So we need to make this as bipartisan as possible to push it through. So everybody needs to keep making the calls, and whether you want to believe that there's a share count going on at AST or not, that's your own opinion. I think in the end of the day, we're going to find out afterwards what's happening and what's not, but it doesn't mean we stop the pressure, and it doesn't mean everybody freaks out every time there's a little bit of news. We have to take a aerial view of things, look at it, and digest what we want to digest, believe what we want to believe, but prepare ourselves that we weren't expecting a U3 halt or to be here 8 months later. So McCabe is going to protect his company, his assets, and his investors. And I feel comfortable with that. And they have been forthright. And I do want to disagree with Mike on one thing. The letter that came out from NextBridge did state that they tried and offered to do 2 days of trading and everything else, or a temporary QSIP, and FINRA turned it down. And then FINRA threw themselves under the bus by releasing the additional emails. So I think NextBridge has been as forthcoming as attorneys are going to let them be. Okay. But I also think we have to have a little bit of faith that when McCabe gets paid, we get paid. So he is not going to do anything to not get paid. And he is pissed as can be with this entire situation. And he wasn't expecting it to be this far. And that's why he stepped to the helm and he's handling it. So we have to do our job, let him do his job, let the attorneys do their job, and keep it moving forward.
Busy, can I add to what John just said?
Yeah, and then we got to go to Costas.
I understand that. What John just said is 100%. All we just need to stay on course and continue doing exactly what we're doing with these congressmen and these senators. Because here's why: if you don't and you back off, then everyone they'll see that it's dying out. That is, we're perfectly fine with what we got going on. Just stay consistent, calling them, repetitious, just continuously call them. Yes, FINRA walked away. John is 100% on these things. What I know of too. But that's all we have to do. So I'm going to quit talking.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jonna, for coming up, and Joe for explaining that to how you love that. Go ahead, Costa. You have the mic.
Hey, thanks, Busy. First off, thanks, Mike, for expressing those words. I know we're all struggling. Those words that you just said earlier, we're all feeling, and I appreciate you for being a voice for a lot of people. Question out there, I'm glad Swing and 100 are still here. For every S1 we've seen, we've always seen the 500 million authorized shares. I've never seen something higher than that. For them to actually have it be more, wouldn't something have come out already to say, hey, we've increased the authorized shares? And can they increase authorized shares without a share count? That's my first question. And the second
answer to your first question is no, they're not obligated.
Okay, but we would assume on the latest S1 a new number.
Right, so they can increase it. They don't need a share count in order to increase. It's just the board of directors vote, and then you have to report it to the state that you change the share structure. And then once that's approved, then it's just a matter of time before they update the state record publicly, right? Internally, it doesn't need it needs to be filed, but publicly, it may not be displayed immediately. It could be delayed.
But the reality is, it could be 20 trillion. AST only deals with what's been authorized and issued, right?
Yeah, so whatever is freely tradable, they would accept as legal property. But what I was trying to point out before is AST can receive as much as 500 billion is what they're saying, and that could serve a purpose because if there's an imbalance of shares, they are recording it in accordance to state law that may be needed at some point in the future. And the reason why state law is more important is because you bypass the SEC, you bypass FINRA, and you bypass Congress. You are strictly in the judicial system by state law. You have jurisdiction over your own property. That's the point.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm going to disagree 100 because I have a feeling they can only accept up to what's been issued because that's been allocated to a broker or to an individual.
Okay, so in the case of EIGH, they asked the transfer agent to go and get an allocated share count per broker. Once the share count came back per broker, it identified 13 brokers with an imbalance. The transfer agent was responsible for giving the issuer who they are paid by to receive that information. So, is it possible to go above the OS? Absolutely.
But would those and this is where it gets that little gray area because so if Fidelity had 20 million and they 25 million Fidelity people registered, where's that extra 5 million coming from? Because they're technically not issued shares.
It's coming from locates, which is legal debt that brokers create when you have liquidity in the market, and it's coming from brokers that are creating illegal debt, which is naked shorts.
Correct, so but that's not coming from the issuer, though.
It's not coming from the issuer. It comes from the broker, but the issuer needs the transfer agent to record the imbalance so that they could prove it in a state law, in a state court.
So the theory is, and again, this is just my 2 cents, is they just increase the number just up to a high number so they can accept anything. And then so they're accepting over allocation essentially in ASD.
Yeah, so they're accepting any imbalance up to an extreme amount, which most likely will never be reached, right? Just to identify that there's an imbalance and cover already in all insurance. And then once it's identified and recorded, they will most likely reduce the authorized share structure to a number that still maintains controlling interest over the company, but does not threaten or put the company at risk based on the imbalances that are recorded. So it is a matter that what CRGP did after there was an imbalance identified in a court of law, they increased their authorized shares to like 145 billion, some astronomical number. Then, when there was fraud that was proven at this on fraud proven on the court of the state of Nevada, they restructured the authorized share structure, shares back down to 3 billion, identifying that there was probably is in my estimate about 450 million shares in balance short on a company that should not even be trading, but it is in the expert market, and it's the only other company that had a FINRA U3 halt. So, these are just tactics that it gives the power to the issuer so that they can identify the threats that are being made against it.
But what is held against the broker who oversold that?
I'm sorry, say that again.
So using that example of Fidelity, they had 20 allocated, they sold 25, they're 5 million over. They have to buy their way in. How does that work for dilution?
The DTC. The DTCC has an obligation to cover those positions if Fidelity is not able to do so.
Right. And then after the DTC corrects that action, then they send out their bill to the broker that has the wrong shares allocated.
What value is determined? That's the big question then.
That's the market's decision. Usually it goes to an open market situation, but in this case, that's the $1 million question. Will MMTLP trade, and how can it trade? Right? So there is a path for it. However, it needs to be under a judge's order, or it needs to be Wall Street saying, all right, we're going to fix this issue, but we need some leeway. Congress and the SEC have to get together so that we can create that path. And if last time I checked, the best path towards a trading situation would be expert market, because that's where all the institutions control the trading, and only accredited investors are allowed to purchase on the expert market. And if there's a situation where, let's say, an emergency buy-in notice is issued for MMTLP to be resolved in the public market, it allows them to fully control a closed position only situation. So that is the only thing that makes sense to me. Any other solution that is open to trade makes no sense to me. Gray market makes no sense to me because you have no bid and ask. Okay, you need to be forced to have a bid and ask situation, and these institutions need to be able to see what's what, and obviously the regulators need to be involved as well. Now they could play it a different way, which would be very surprising to me if they do allow it to go gray market and then hide every allocated position from each of the brokers individually. But then it presents a problem, because if you're a retail investor and you can't see bid and ask, you're only looking at time and sales that are executed. So you're just going based on, well, if the stock hits this price, I'm going to go here, or I'm going to go above it, or I'm going to go below it and see if it executes. It'll take all day for you to get a transaction to go through.
So that's why I'm saying the expert market is highly likely.